You know, I've been making dirt bike videos for more than 10 years now, and I've been answering questions hundreds and thousands of times. And one of the most common things that people ask is, what dirt bike should I buy when I get into the sport? And included in that is, should I buy used or should I buy new? So today I want to talk about some of the pros and cons of buying used and buying new. And we did a video, in fact, I did a podcast about this about 4 years ago. But I think it bears repeating because there's so many new people on the channel. By the way, if you are new and you don't know about this, you don't even have to figure out whether you're gonna buy used or new. If you go to my website, dirtbikechannel.com, before October 15th of 2024, you can get entered to win this 2024 KTM 300 XCW. You can buy a shirt off my website or anything that I've got over there, hats. You can also use my affiliate links to Rocky Mountain ATV. It's over there on dirtbikechannel.com. But hurry up and get entered because this thing doesn't last that long. So now, let's get into talking about whether you should buy used versus new. Now, I bought a lot of new dirt bikes in my tenure in doing this, and I have some reasons why, and we'll get into that. The biggest knock that people have on buying a new dirt bike, especially if it's your first one, is it's the most expensive way to get into the sport. It has the most upfront cost, and the money, you will lose some money on the dirt bike when you buy it new. I mean, you're gonna lose a little bit of money on a used dirt bike too, but you'll lose typically more money on a brand new dirt bike. Just like if you buy a brand new car and drive it off the lot, that's the most expensive day in that car's life, is when you take it off the lot. It depreciates a lot in value. And a similar thing happens with dirt bikes, although it's not as bad as with cars. So one con against buying new is it's the most expensive way to do it, but I'm gonna get into how you can mitigate that here in just a moment. That's the biggest knock that people have. One of the things I like about buying new is it's typically easier to just find what you want. You just decide, I want this brand or this model, and then you can go out there and you can call a bunch of dealers. Now, I do recommend, if you've got a good dealer in your area, go ask that dealer and try to buy it from them and see if they can get it. Maybe if they don't even have it, maybe they can get it transferred in from another dealer by doing a trade. But when you go look for a new bike, it's easier because you're not chasing like a million people on classifieds, which we're gonna get into. So I think it's a little bit easier to find what you want if you're buying new. Another thing I love is that when you're buying new, you're not inheriting someone else's problems. You never know why somebody's actually selling a dirt bike. Maybe it's a perfect used bike, but maybe it's not. Maybe they're selling it because it's got some motor issue, or maybe they're selling it because it's got some other problem that you are maybe even not aware of. And especially if you're just getting into this sport, you don't know what you don't know. And so it's hard for you to know what to even look for. Like, it could have a bad crankcase, or it could have some other problem. The wheel bearings could be going out. There's a lot of things that might be happening with the bike that you don't know about. And so if you buy new for your first bike, you're not gonna inherit someone else's problems, and that's actually a pro. Hey, before I get too deep into this video, I should mention that if you want to support what these videos are and this information, you should go to dirtbikechannel.com right now and get entered to win this bike. Also, use my links to Rocky Mountain ATV. You can buy anything they sell after you click on those links. And if you do this before October 15th of 2024, you're gonna get entered to win this bike right here, 2024 KTM 300 XCW. It's amazing. So go to my website right now and get entered. Another pro is that some bikes come with a little bit of a warranty. Now, there's not a ton of warranties in dirt bikes. KTM will have like a 30-day warranty, but again, the dealer might actually take it back from you. If you go and you have a problem with it on the first day, the thing won't start, the dealer's probably going to take care of you with the manufacturer, and so that's another, it's just a little bit more of a guarantee. With a new bike, it's also easier to install protective parts. Because things aren't bent on the bike and things aren't dirty. And also, you get to decide what to put on the bike. I'm gonna get into that in a little bit, but I always like working on clean bikes, and I like working on things that are fresh. It's just nice to have a freshie sometimes. If you do decide to go with a new bike, you can kind of plan on, if you keep that bike for 1 year, maybe 2, 3 years at the tops, you're gonna lose the least amount of money on that, and it's still gonna be a pretty current bike. And a benefit of this is it's relatively easy to sell a 1 or 2 or 3 year old bike, because there's a lot of people that didn't want to buy new. They didn't want to take the hit that you originally took. And so it's usually a very easy sell when you go to move it into the used market, because those bikes are in pretty high demand, which we're going to get into in a little bit on buying used. But you can get that benefit because it's easier to move a bike that's only a couple of years old when you go around to actually sell it, because either you're getting out of the sport or you're upgrading to something newer. And just an idea, let's say, I'm just gonna use round numbers for this one. Let's say that the cost of the dirt bike is 10 grand. Now I know a lot of these bikes are you're writing $12,000 checks, sometimes a little bit more, depending on what your sales tax and stuff is. But let's just say you buy a bike for $10,000. That first bike is the hardest one to buy, especially if you're gonna pay cash for it. But imagine if you did this. Imagine if you saved up the money to buy a brand new dirt bike. If you even just saved $100 a month, you could buy, that is covering the cost of the depreciation of what you're going to sell the bike for in a year, year and a half, or 2 years from now. I guarantee you, you save $100 a month, and in 2 years, you've got $2,400. That is enough money to go out and buy another brand new dirt bike. So that's what I always tell people is the first one is the very hardest one, especially if you want to pay cash for it, which if you can do that, that's great. I know a lot of people can't. You might be doing financing, but if you put even just, $100 a month, you get some side hustle, put $100 a month away into your dirt bike fund, and then you can perpetually have a new bike every year or every other year. So let's talk about some of the reasons why you might want to buy a used bike for your first one. The first reason is totally obvious. We've already alluded to it. The cost to get into dirt bikes is going to be cheaper. Now, that's important because you're going to be buying a lot of safety gear. You're going to be buying a helmet. You're going to be buying boots and riding pants and all of these different things. You're going to spend anywhere from $300 to $1,000, maybe even more on your riding gear, and I do think that is very important. So, you're not going to get anything, hardly anything out of your helmets. Like if you wanted to sell a helmet or boots afterwards, you're not going to get really anything out of that. But if you buy a used dirt bike and you buy a used dirt bike that's been well maintained, you're gonna get basically all your money out of it. Like especially the last few years, used dirt bikes have been holding their value really, really well. Let's say you buy a bike for just say $8,000 that's a year-old bike or something. You'll probably be able to sell that bike for about $7,500 the next year. It might have only lost $200, $300, $400, $500. So it's the cheapest way to get into this. You've still got that asset. And although it's not necessarily an asset because it appreciates in value, it's always, kind of losing its value, but it's not losing a value, losing at a drastic amount. So you can get that back out if you decide that dirt biking isn't for you, or if you're just deciding to get something else, buy another used bike or whatever you're doing, you're going to get most of your money out of it. The depreciation isn't as bad on that used bike. So paying less for the bike is great, having less of a hit on the bike is great, but here are some of the reasons that you might want to think twice about buying a used bike. It's harder to find a good one. You're going to spend a bunch of time. The way I talk to people about it is it's essentially like you're enlisting yourself in a part-time job to find this dirt bike. So instead of paying the full price for it out of your pocketbook or whatever, you're going to essentially enroll yourself in a part-time job to find this sucker. Now, for some people, it's a hobby and they enjoy the thrill of the hunt. And so if you're that type of person and you like looking through Facebook Marketplace and classifieds, Craigslist, all these different things, if you're here like in Utah, there's this classified service that's called KSL. It's by one of the news outlets that's here. You're gonna be perusing these things and scouring these classifieds for a lot of time. And honestly, it is a part-time job. I think you're gonna be searching for this bike anywhere between 5 to 40 hours, maybe even up to as many as 80 hours looking for this bike. And that doesn't include the travel time. You're gonna then, narrow it down like, oh, I think I like this bike. And then you're gonna drive however many hours to go look at it. And if it's not the bike that you want, then it's like, scratch that one off the list. And this job that you just enlisted in, it can start to multiply hour after hour after hour. And you just have to ask yourself, am I going to spend more of my time and more of my money as far as what my time is worth to me looking for this used bike than I would be to just go buy a new bike? Now, for me, that has pretty much in the last few years always been, I don't want to spend that time looking for a used bike. I'm going to spend a little bit extra and get a new bike because I don't have to enlist myself in a part-time job to go out there and find this sucker. Another potential downfall is because you might get kind of buyer's fatigue. And what I mean by that is maybe you've gone and looked at like 3 or 4 different bikes and you didn't pull the trigger, and then you go look at this 5th bike and it might not even be as in good a shape as the first bike that you saw a week or 2 or 3 weeks ago or a month and a half ago. But now you're just like, dude, I'm just wasting my time here. And so I've seen a lot of times where you then just kind of like settle for that. I'm just going to call it that 5th bike that you went and looked at, and you settle for it because it's like, you're just so tired of the shop, you're so tired of the hunt. And so you can oftentimes end up with a worse bike than what you would have started with because you were holding out for a really, really good deal. Now, if you have a ton of patience, you can just continue to do it over and over again. But then it's that time commitment that you've sunk into looking for a used bike. Another thing that people don't love about the used bike process is it's sometimes you get into these awkward negotiations. You know, the guy's listing it for $7,500, but you want to see if you can lowball him. You're going to, give him this offer, and then he's going to counter with this offer. And sometimes that is just really awkward, and some people don't like that. Other guys love to, haggle and love to dicker with people, whereas some people are like, that's a total turnoff to them. That's just something to keep in mind. You might not like this negotiation part. One thing that's always been annoying to me about buying a used bike is these people, in a lot of cases, they put all these aftermarket parts on the bike. And so they'll list like this whole list of things that they've got, like this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, and they think that makes the bike worth more. Newsflash, it doesn't make it worth more. Just because you have $2,000 worth of parts on the bike doesn't mean the bike is $2,000 more. It might make the bike sell faster, but it doesn't make it, it doesn't make it sell for more. You're getting pennies on the dollar. You put $2,000 in upgrades into a bike and it might sell for an extra $100 or $200. But you have some of these people who think it's worth all this more. And so you're spending time like negotiating with people or whatever that are completely unrealistic. And so that's another problem. Personally, I don't like a bike to have all these aftermarket parts on it because I want to put my parts on it. 9 times out of 10, I don't give a shite about your upgraded parts because honestly, they're probably just making the bike either heavier or more expensive, or oftentimes it's not better. It's just got a bunch of crap on it that I don't want, and then I have to take it off. So when if I am looking for a used bike, I'm looking for a bike that's basically stock that they didn't do much to. One other drawback about buying this used bike is, let's say you bought the bike when it's 2, 3, 4 years old, and then you rode it for 2 or 3 years. Now the bike is anywhere from 4 to 7 to maybe 8 model years old, and it's not worth a lot at that point. And then when you turn around and go to sell it, you're looking at a lower price point for people, and so that means you're getting more like younger kids and more bargain hunters and more tire kickers. And so you will get a different buyer when you go to resell that. Like if you're reselling a bike for like $9,000 because it was only like 1 year old, you get a certain level of buyer. You're dealing with a certain level of buyers versus if you're selling a bike for $4,000 or $3,500, it's a whole different class of people that you're now marketing that bike to and selling that bike to. And it can be a much more frustrating process to even get the bike sold because you're selling it to people who don't have as much money, and there's more haggling and there's more tire kickers down in this bottom price range. So it's a little bit more frustrating what I've seen when you're going to sell that used bike when it's several model years old and it's lost a lot of its value. That's a frustrating process. Hey, thanks for sticking around. This is a long video. If you have any questions, you can always email me. It's kyle@dirtbikechannel.com, or you can go to my website. There's a little contact form where you can schedule a call with me. If you just want to have a call and be like, hey Kyle, what bike should I buy? I do these consulting calls with people all the time. You can either schedule like a 15-minute call for free, or we can spend an hour on the phone and you can pay for that one. I just like to protect my time, but I love helping people get into this sport. It's probably the biggest passion that I've got right now, is just helping answer people's questions and cutting through the BS. So if you have questions about certain bikes you should buy, let me know. It's kyle@dirtbikechannel.com, or go to my website, dirtbikechannel.com, and click on the contact form. And that's what I've got for you guys. So hopefully this was helpful to some of you out there, and welcome to the sport as you're coming into it. And until next time, leave a single track.